Hi everyone, it's me, Arielle, and it's Wednesday Warriors. And this week I'm going to be talking about recovery and the differences in recovery and why it's important not to compare your recovery to someone else's. Um, Sort of going to be talking about plateaus in recovery, which I sort of describe physically as getting to a certain weight and not being able to keep gaining. And also mentally and emotionally, when you have worked so hard in recovery and then you get to a certain point and you're not getting any worse, but you can't seem to get any better or get any farther along. And I think that almost happens more often than anything to do with weight changes or fluctuations or maintenance. But the main message is really about patience and having patience with recovery, because recovery is different for everyone. And if you think that it should only take you 3 years to get to a good place because you know someone for whom it only took 3 years, then you might be setting yourself up for some disappointment, and you might have unreasonable expectations because you're comparing yourself to someone else in the same way that you might compare yourself to someone else as far as appearance or weight. I think it's very important to focus on yourself and learning yourself, knowing yourself, and your own strengths and weaknesses, and what you can do to push forward and just be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Almost pretend that the other people that you might look to in recovery don't exist. I think it's important to find inspiration within other people who you might see as role models or as recovery advocates. But it's important not to focus on, one, the length of time, the height and weight, um, maybe even the daily routine, because we all have different needs depending on our lifestyles and our body types and our locations and disabilities, things like that. What's important isn't the time it takes you to become recovered or to be strong in recovery. It's recovery itself. It's feeling good day to day, being healthy in body, mind, and spirit, whether it takes you 3 years to get to that place or 30. It's a work in progress because we are all works in progress. I think sometimes we lack patience so much that we try to take shortcuts in recovery, and as soon as we are at a healthy weight, whether that means gaining or losing or maintaining, we think that we have somehow gotten to a point where we don't need help any longer. And I think that's almost always the farthest thing from the truth. We need to remember that the eating disorder is a mental health issue, it's a mental illness, and we need to heal our minds as well. It's really important for our bodies to become healthy, and if our bodies become healthy first, it's great because it helps your mind and it helps you get on that right path, and it helps you think more clearly and focus on the right things and be more positive, be less tired, all sorts of great things. But you shouldn't stop there and think that you have achieved complete perfection. And if what you're looking for is perfection, you are going to set yourself up once again, because there is no such thing as real perfection. And I think improving your self-confidence will really help with patience, because the more you think of yourself positively, the less you're going to feel disappointed in how far you've come. And I think that it's good to be able to reward yourself for the things that you have accomplished and have done well, and really recognize those things. Don't pass them off as, small goals that you achieved that are meaningless, because everything is meaningful in recovery. And you have to consider yourself worthy of getting better. You have to consider yourself important enough to keep working towards something that really is achievable, even though it might not seem achievable right now. But if you have self-confidence, you won't get so frustrated in yourself when something does go wrong, because you'll still have all the good things behind you that you have appreciated about yourself, and you won't become so impatient with the progress you're making or the lack of progress. I'm going to direct you to a bunch of videos that I've done in the past that really relate to this topic. I can think of at least 4 off the top of my head that I want to share with you. So I do hope you'll check those out in the info box later so that you don't have to stop watching this video. Don't give yourself deadlines. I say this all the time. If you want to be at a certain point in recovery by a certain date, and on that certain date you have not achieved all of the things that you wanted to achieve, you're going to be very upset with yourself. It's the same way that I feel about New Year's resolutions. You have to have the right attitude. You have to change your thinking. You have to really remember that giving yourself a deadline for something as important as life and living and recovery just doesn't work, because it's not like writing a paper that's due by a certain date. It's your life and your well-being and your mental health status and your just overall joy of the day to day. And you just can't put a price on that, and you certainly then can't put a deadline on that. Do you want it to happen as soon as possible? Of course you do, but you're actually making the goal less attainable by giving yourself a deadline, because when you don't reach that deadline, you know you're going to feel so down on yourself and so bad. And what that does is it hinders all the progress that you've already made, because 1, it doesn't validate everything you already have done, and 2, it gives you an opportunity to berate yourself and be negative towards yourself, which is just the complete opposite of what recovery should be about. And 3, it just sort of reinforces that you did something wrong, when really you've done a lot of things right. And because you haven't gotten as far as you think you should, it usually has something to do with comparing yourself to someone else's recovery or high expectations that might be unreasonable. If you're only focusing on yourself and your life and your well-being, and you're not taking into consideration anything you know about anyone else who has an eating disorder or who is recovering from an eating disorder, chances are you're going to be happy with any little stride you make in the right direction, forward and forward and forward each day or each week or each month or each year. So when you give yourself a deadline, you are really pitting yourself against what you know about other people and what you know about eating disorder recovery. And I think it's a recipe for disaster. I want you to recognize your worth, because we're all worth enjoying life, and you can't enjoy life with an eating disorder. You just can't. It doesn't work. And I want for everyone to be able to enjoy life because it's beautiful. You can do this. I promise that you can do this. I don't know how long it will take you. It won't take the same amount of time for everyone, and you have to remember that that's okay. And while it will feel frustrating to have so much time pass when you only are wishing for something more, you're working towards it. You're not just staying in one position, moving nowhere. And even when you plateau in body, mind, or spirit, it's part of the recovery process. It's not the end. You haven't reached the finish line. You're somewhere in the middle, and you might need a little push to get started again, or you might kind of wait there and rest for a while because you don't know how to move forward, or you're just too tired with all the work you've already put into things. And that's okay too, because recovery, again, is different for all of us. I don't want to repeat myself, so I really hope you will check out the videos that I've posted the links to. A lot of them really say what I want you all to know. And if there's anything that I want you all to know, it's that recovery is possible. And even if you've been in recovery for what seems like such an incredibly long time, you can get to a healthier you, mentally, physically, whatever it takes, whatever you need, you can get there. It's completely possible. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.